हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अद्य कृदन्तप्रकरणस्य 88तमः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः प्रक्रियायां त्रिपादिकार्यस्य विषये अग्रे पठामः। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनिये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। मुनित्रयं नमस्कृत्य तदुक्तिः परिभाव्य च वैयाकरणसिद्धान्तकौमुदीयं विरच्यते। निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः करपत्रे निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः इति अन्तिमे करपत्रे त्रिपादिकार्यस्य विषये नकारादेशविधानम् अस्माभिः पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे सम्पूर्णरूपेण अधीतं। तत्र रदाभ्यां निष्ठातो नः पूर्वस्य च दः इत्यस्मात् सूत्रात् आरभ्य अत्र अस्ति रदाभ्यां निष्ठातो नः पूर्वस्य च दः इत्यस्मात् सूत्रात् आरभ्य निर्वाणो वाते इति यावत्सु सर्वेषु सूत्रेषु निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः कृतः अस्ति। एतानि सर्वाणि सूत्राणि पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे अस्माभिः दृष्टानि। अद्य अग्रे गच्छामः। निष्ठातकारस्य अन्ये ये केऽपि आदेशाः पाठिताः सन्ति तेषां विषये अद्य अध्ययनं कुर्मः। So the next set of sutras, shushaha kaha, you can see there is a kakara desha, there is a vakara desha, there is a makara desha, and so on. And in some places there is an optional nakara desha, vaikalpika nakara desha, and so on. So our goal today is to start with this shushaha kaha and finish the entire nishtha takara section all the way till nasatta, nishatta, and so on, and finish a few more sutras, halidirgha, halicha, upadhayancha. I don't need to teach these sutras, nashtapadantasya jhali, and so on, and come till idubadhasya cha pratyayasya. We'll not learn this, but we'll come till this so that in the next week we can start with the green colored section, the shakara desha. Prarabhamahe tatra prathamam sutram adyatanavargasya shushaha kaha. Saralani eva sarvani sutrani santi shushaha kaha pacho vaha kshayo maha. All are extremely easy. Most of you should be able to understand these sutras on your own. So this is the summary of all the dhatus that we are going to study today. Shusha, pacha, kshi or kshai, and so on. Tatra prathamam sutram shushaha kaha. Nothing is there. Shusha iti dhatuhu asti. तस्मात् विहितस्य निष्ठा प्रत्ययस्य ककारादेशः तकारस्य ककारादेशः भवति। शुषेः धातोः उत्तरस्य निष्ठा तकारस्य ककारादेशः भवति। शुष प्लस त becomes क, शुष प्लस क शुष्क, ड्राई इति अत्र शब्दः सिद्ध्यति। निष्ठातः एव, so this is whole discussion of the nishtha pratyaya conversion. The ta is now getting converted to ka. There was no other conversion possible. So this ka is not coming up by blocking the previous nakara desha or anything like that. It's just ka that is coming up. The ta is being converted directly to ka. The next one is pacho vaha. Pacho vaha, same thing. Pacha dhatoho vihitasya nishtha pratyasya vakara desha bhavati. Exactly same structure. Pachehe dhatoh uttarasya nishtha takarasya vakara desha bhavati. Pacha plus ta. Paka plus ta, paka plus va, pakva, very well known word is derived over here. There is an interesting anecdote about Mahabhashya or about Maharshi Patanjali in context of this pakva word. Maybe if time permits, I'll talk about it towards the end or at some other point in time. Third sutra is kshayo maha. Again, repeats the same pattern. Kshay kshaye iti dhatuhu. Tatra adecho upadeshesh iti akaradeshah. Ksha plus ta. Ta ityasya makaradeshah, ksha plus ma, kshama. So in all these cases, no other adesha was coming up. All that you had was the ta that is being converted in one case to ka, second case to va, next case to ma. Shay dhatoho uttarasya nishtatakarasya makaradeshah bhavati kshamaha, kshamavan, kshamaha iti kaumudya uchyate. Agre gacchamaha, so that completes 3 sutras. The next sutra, prastyah anyatarasyam. The previous sutra was giving a compulsory makara for the kshi dhatu. The next sutra takes the anuvritti of that ma, but for a different dhatu and gives it optionally. Nishtha takarasya vaikalpika makaraha bhavati prastyonyatarasyam iti sutrena styai iti dhatuhu. Styai shabde shabda sanghatayoho प्र इति उपसर्गः प्र प्लस त्यै इत्यस्य विषये निष्ठातकारस्य वैकल्पिकमकारादेशः भवति. This pra plus tyai dhatu is not a new dhatu. We have already seen it in the step of angakarya, or to be precise, in the step of samprasaranam. So section 3 samprasaranam, we had styaha prapurvasya. We have studied this particular sutram. What does this sutra say? When the styai dhatu is present along with the upasarga pra, we get a samprasarana. So pra plus stya. This stya is essentially stya adecha upadesheshiti will make a stya samprasarane krute sti tadanantaram dirghadeshe krute halaha iti dirghadeshe krute sti, and then this is the last step that we are looking right now, optional makaradesha prastita no chet prastima. So styaha prapurvasya, again yesterday also we saw a connection between samprasaranam and nishtha adesha. Today also we are seeing a similar connection between a nishtha adesha on one side and the samprasaranam on other side. So styai iti dhatuhu styaha prapurvasya iti sutrena purvam samprasaranam bhavati tadanantaram idanim nishtatakarasya makaradeshah bhavati. Again, for this particular styai dhatu, there are some keen observations that we need to make. Sarva prathamam styai iti kevala dhatum svikurmaha without pra upasarga standalone styai dhatu. तस्य विषये किं भवति? प्रारंभे आदेशोपदेशेषिति इत्यनेन आकारादेशः भवति. अस्य धातोः इदानीं संयोगादिः अस्ति, आकारान्तः अस्ति, यणवान् अस्ति, यकारः अस्ति तत्र. अतः संयोगादेरातो धातोर्यणवत इत्यनेन तत्र निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. So observe this very carefully. Stand alone styai dhatu will cause a nakaradesha, whereas pra plus styai it will cause a makaradesha. So let's capture this information first. Styai iti dhatuhu or shtyai. There are two dhatus. Shtyai will automatically become styai. Styai tatha shtyai samanaha arthaha shabda sanghatayoho, to emphasize, to speak, to hit, to make an impact iti arthaha. एतयोः धातवोः आदेचोपदेशेषिति इत्यनेन आकारादेशे कृते स्त्या प्लस् त इत्यत्र संयोगादेरातो धातोर्यण्वत इत्यनेन निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. स्त्यै becomes stya, stya plus ta becomes styana. This particular part of prakriya does neither involve the samprasaranam, nor it involves the current sutra under discussion where makaradesha is coming up. This is a base case. When the upasarga is not there, this is a simple prakriya that happens. Now, when the pra upasarga comes, both the things are going to happen. You are going to have a samprasaranam, and on the same result, you are going to have the nishtha takara getting optionally converted to makara. So there is no presence of nakara at all. It is either takara or it optionally becomes makara. Kimartham? Pashyamaha. Pra plus tyai ityatra styaha prapurvasya. This is the sutra in the angakarya or in the samprasaranam section, which actually happens before the step of angakarya. So styaha prapurvasya ityanena samprasarane krute sti prathamam hrasvam asti tadanantaram dirghaha bhavati. Sti iti sthite tatra akaraha nasti. So the conditions of sanyogader ataha dhatoryanvata are not satisfied, and therefore there is no question of nakaradesha. Sanyogadehe ato dhatoryanvata sutrameva na pravartate. So all that you have is pra, sti and kta. And at this point in time, our Tripadi Sutram comes in the picture and it says optionally convert this to makara. So prastyonyatarasyam, sutra gives it everything. Anyatarasyam, optionally. Prastyaha, pra plus tyai iti dhatoho vikalpena asmad vihitasya nishtatakarasya vikalpena makaradeshaha bhavati. So pra plus tyai plus kta, pra plus sti plus ta, styai is becoming sti because of samprasaranam, prastita or prastima. So standalone styai, very beautiful example. Standalone styai gets a different adesha. Sopasarga styai gets a different adesha. Now, one more point to remember over here. While discussing this particular stya prapurvasya sutram, I also mentioned one small aspect अत्र प्रपूर्वस्य इति किमर्थं लिखितमस्ति? प्रस्त्यः. Directly, why don't you call prastyah? You could have just combined them together. Why do you write prapurvasya? And the answer given in the commentary was prapurvasya means that when there is a chain of upasargas, the first upasarga, the very first upasarga must be pra, then other upasargas are allowed, and then sthyayi dhatu is allowed. In that particular case also samprasaranam happens. Let me repeat this. Normal sthyayi dhatu samprasaranam will not happen. There is no sutra for that. Pra plus sthyayi samprasaranam will definitely happen. There is a sutra in front of you. Styaha prapurvasya. The question that we are asking is, why do you use a gaurava? Why do you use a lengthy word like prapurvasya styaha? Compare it with the current sutram that we are in the nishtha tripadi we are looking. Prastyaha anyatarasyam. Look how beautifully Panini captures the word prastyaha. So why can't he do the same thing here? Prastyaha ityeva lekhaniyam. Styaha prapurvasya iti kimartham likhyate? Tasya kimuttaram? Prapurvam asti ityeva tatra arthaha. Immediately purvam asti iti na avashakam iti tatra uttaram. So if you have pra, if you have some other upasarga, say sama, and then if you have a dhatu, even at that place tyaha prapurvasya will be applicable, causing a samprasaranam. That's the second example given over here. Pra plus sama plus tyai atra api sti iti samprasaranam bhavati. So the samprasaranam given by 6123 styaha prapurvasya is in two cases. It is pra plus tyai or it is pra plus sama plus tyai. Out of the two cases, prastyonyatarasyam gives the makaradesha only for the pra plus tya case. That is the reason of a different looking sutram. So in one case, he says prapurvasya. In the tripadi, he says prastyaha. Why such a difference? Because when he says prapurvasya, he allows something in between. When he says prastyaha, he does not agree to having anything in between. And that brings us to the third clause. Yadi pra ityasmat anantaram anyaha upasargaha vidyate, tarhi samprasaranam avashyam bhavati, parantu prastyonyatarasyam iti sutram tripadyaha sutram makara vidhayakam sutram tatra na prayujyate, yataha sutre prastya iti spashtah nirdeshah krutah asti. Compare and contrast the arrangement of the two sutras. The previous sutra says tyaha prapurvasya. The current sutra says prastyaha anyatarasyam. Prapurvasya allows insertion of another upasarga. Prastyaha does not allow that. Therefore, essentially in the third case, when you have pra plus sama plus sthyayi, we get some prasaranam, but we do not get makaradesha. अतः प्र प्लस सम प्लस त्यई प्लस त संप्रसारणम अवश्यम भवति स्ति इति भवति, परंतु तत्र मकारादेशः न भवति, प्रसंस्तीत इति एव रूपं सिद्ध्यति. So just like yesterday, we can now have a table. The table helps us to capture the whole information very concisely. So we can have the table in one column, the same set of columns. There is samprasaranam on one side, there is nishtatakarasya adesha on other side. When we talk about the standalone styayi dhatu, obviously there is no samprasaranam because samprasaranam requires the pra upasarga. So samprasaranam na bhavati, parantu sanyogade rato dhator yanvata ityanena nakaradesha avashyam bhavati. Stya plus ta becomes styana. So this is a case where samprasaranam is not there, but nakaradesha is there. In the second case and the third case, when you have pra plus styayi or when you have pra plus sama plus styayi, in both the cases there will be some prasaranam, but in first case there will be optional makaradesha, not nakaradesha, makaradesha. So prastyonyatarasyam iti vikalpena makaradesha, giving us prastima and prastita. In the third case, because the sutra clearly says prastyaha, any upasarga putting in between them is not allowed. So atra nishtatakarasya kopi adesha na bhavati. Pra plus sama plus ti plus ta gives prasamstita. So three different combinations: no samprasaranam and nakaradesha, samprasaranam and makaradesha, that also optional, samprasaranam, and no adesha. 3 different combinations are generated by this simple sutram. Let's quickly take a look at the commentary. Somebody is asking, what about sama plus pra? Sama plus pra ityatra pra iti pra purva tatra asti, atha tatra praya bhavitum arhati. It eventually depends on the prayogas. We might not be able to see or get the prayogas like some pra, but pra plus sama prayogas are definitely there. That's what commentaries have told. प्रपूर्वात् स्त्यायतेः उत्तरस्य निष्ठातकारस्य अन्यतरस्यां मकारादेशः भवति प्रस्तीमः प्रस्तीमवान् प्रस्तीतः प्रस्तीमवान् अन्यतरस्याम् इति अस्ति। यदा मत्वं नास्ति तदा संयोगादेरातो धातोर्यण्वतः इत्यस्य पूर्वत्र असिद्धत्वात् संप्रसारणं प्रथमं क्रियते. He is explaining this prakriya. He is saying in one branch there is a makara desha, because makara desha is happening optionally. So in one branch of the prakriya there will be makara desha. In other branch of the prakriya there is no makara desha. When there is no makara desha, the question is, will you do nakara desha over there? That's the question he is saying. If there is no makara desha, will you keep that as it is, or will you do the nakara desha? The answer is obviously clear. When the makara desha is not there, we will not do nakara desha, because nakara desha happens only when a is present. In the current case, we have e, and that is happening all the way in the 6.1, much before Tripadi. So that's what Kashika is explaining, that even though makara desha is not there, there is no scope for application of sanyogade rator dhator yanvata. This is the sutra. Sanyogade rato dhator yanvata sutram is the one that is going to create a nakara desha. This sutram can only act on an a, but what you have is e. So this sutra cannot act even when makara desha doesn't take place. That's what he's saying. Yada matvam nasti, the second branch where we want to keep the as it is, tada sanyogade rato dhator yanvata ityasya purvatra asiddhatvat samprasaranam prathamam kriyate. First thing will be to do samprasaranam, because sanyogade rato dhator yanvata is in tripadi. It is asiddha towards towards samprasaranam. So samprasaranam will be done first. As soon as samprasaranam is done first, a is removed. We get an e. Originally there was a, stya was there, but as soon as, so plus stya will become stya, and then stya will become sti. So the nimitta itself is gone. What is the nimitta? Akara. That akara nimitta is all gone. So he says nimitta vyaghata, removal of nimitta, absence of nimitta means that natva will not happen. Yada matvam nasti tada sanyogade rato dhator yanvatah ityatra purvatra asiddhatvat samprasaranam prathamam kriyate tatra krute nimitta vyaghatat natvam na bhavati. Kaumudi nishta tasya mahavasyat vikalpena bhavati prastitaha prastimaha prastitaha pratkim. Same first row of our table. Pra iti nasti chet tatra samprasaranam eva na bhavati stya iti avatishthate. Stya plus ta becomes na, styana. He wraps it in like one line, styana. A lot of reading between the lines is required when it comes to Kaumudi. Very crisp and concise meanings, but a lot of attention is needed for us to understand the stuff that he's talking about. Agre gacchamaha. Some interesting aspects are now coming up. So we are done with, let's go to Tripadi sheet. We are done with shushaha, kaha, pacho, vaha, kshayo, maha, and prastyonyatarasyam. The next one is, somebody is asking, what is vyaghatam? Vyaghatam is destruction, killing. So the nimitta has been removed, nimitta has been killed, nimitta has been taken out from there. Iti artha. Nimitta vyaghatat tatra adeshah na bhavati, nakaradeshah na bhavati. Iti artha. Okay, so we have done shushaha, kaha, pacho, vaha, kshayo, maha, prastyonyatarasyam. The next one is a nipatana, anupasargat, pulla, kshiba, krusha, ullaghaha. 4 words are directly given to you. It's a nipatana. Pulla is one word, kshiba is a second word, Krusha is third word, a very well known word. Thin, krusha means. And ullagha is fourth word. Let's actually first take a look at these individual prakriyas of these words, and then we will come to the sutram. So we have four words that are being derived. It's basically nipatanam, but let's take a look at prakriya and understand where the nipatanam actually happens. Because nipatana does not mean we just ignore the prakriya. We try to do the prakriya, and in any step, wherever yatra kutrachit tatra sutram nopalabhyate, sutrena tatra karyam na bhavitum arhati, परंतु तत् कार्यम् इष्यते तत् कार्यं तत्र निपातनेन करणीयम्. सर्वत्र निपातनेनैव अन्तिमं रूपं साधितुं शक्नुमः, सिद्ध्यति इति प्रायः नोच्यते. So let's go to this individual words. The first word that we want to do is pulla. Again, this word we have slightly seen earlier, or part of the prakriya we have seen earlier in the step of angakarya. All the way the last sutra of this particular sheet, च इति सूत्रमस्माभिः दृष्टपूर्वं यिफला इति तत्र धातुः अस्ति. यिफला विशरणे इत्यस्य तकारादि कित् प्रत्येक परे उकारादेशः भवति. So the akara of this particular dhatu phala becomes ukara. So phala plus ta, the pha tasmad anantaram yaha akarah asti, tasya ukaradeshah bhavati. Pulla plus ta. So the ukara desha is already given by the sutra teacher. In the next step, what we are eventually doing is ta is being converted to la. So earlier we saw examples of ta getting converted to ka, ta getting converted to wa, ta getting converted to ma. Right now ta is getting converted to la, and that's being given as nipatana. So he could have probably created another sutram just like pacho vaha and kshayo maha. He could have created a similar sutra for saying pullaha laha or whatever, phalaha laha, whatever. But he prefers to have the nipatana given directly over here. Pulla. Nothing special is happening. Ta is getting converted to la. That's all that is there in this nipatanam. So phala plus tahi phala visharane plus ta iti atra prakriya. Pulla iti nipatyate. That's being given in the sutra. Phala plus ta. Phala plus ta. First of all, idagama does not come up. Nothing is related to nipatanam. Adit dhatu asti ata tadrusha idagama nishidyate. Aditasya iti nishedhaha. Ti cha iti akarasya utvam. Just now we saw this. So pulla plus ta, and then ta goes to na. Ta becomes a la. Takarasya lakaradesha nipatyate. Pulla plus la becomes pulla. That's how this particular word is being derived. Understand, the sutra says anupasargat phullakshiba krushollaghaha. Here, anupasargat phullakshiba krushollaghaha. It is anupasarga. So when you have an upasarga, say pra plus phulla, asya sutrasya no chetasya nipatanasya prasaktihi nasti, praphullita no chet praphulta iti rupani siddhyanti. Standalone phulla dhatu, anupasarga without the upasarga, will give this kind of nipatana. In addition, Vartikakara or Bhashya or Vyakhyanas give two more words, Utphulla and Samphulla. It's all about justifying the existing prayogas. So there are going to be these kind of, exceptions or these kind of tricky corner cases. Along with Phulla, there are only two examples which have an upasarga but still Phulla form is supported. Utphulla and Samphulla. Etayoho vishaye api idameva nipatanam अन्येषाम् उपसर्गाणाम् उपस्थितौ तु लत्वं न भवति. किमर्थं न भवति? सूत्रे एव अनुपसर्गात् इति उक्तमस्ति, अतः तत्र लत्वं न भवति. So that is about the first of the four dhatus, phulla. The second, third and the fourth, kshiba, krusha and ullagha. The prakriya for these three is actually identical. So we can take an example of say kshiba for now, and then we can repeat the whole thing for krusha and ullagha. So kshiba ityasya vishaye pashyamaha. Kshiba made, to have ego, to have power, plus ta becomes kshiba matta. nishtaha iti artha asti, the one who is egoistic or who is having whatever big thoughts about his power, whatever, or he is actually blindfolded by the power, whatever. So kshiba plus kta ityatra kshiba iti shabdah nipapyate. Idanim asya sutrasya nipatanam pashyamah. There is one question that I'll take. Somebody is asking what is, how can you derive the word prafullita? So same question was asked by the same person in that class also, where I discussed teacher. So there is a separate dhatu called phulla. So phulla is a different dhatu. Phulla plus kta is a simple prakriya. Phulla plus idagama plus kta will give phullita, and that's prafullita. This is a different dhatu phala from which prafullita is being derived. So not to be confused in these two different words. So people are giving a few more meanings of kshiba. So kshiba, it also means drunk, intoxicated. So I mean, basically lost his control, lost his whatever vision, in the sense sadasad vivekasya nashaha. All these are actually acceptable meanings. Somebody is saying egoistical, that's also an acceptable meaning. So basically kshiba, there are multiple flavors of meanings of this particular word. I'm specifically not picking one, because some meanings will not fit a context that I want to discuss later on. Some meanings will not fit here, but it will fit the other context, and so on. So dhatunam anekarthaah santi. So these couple of meanings that I just now mentioned, it could be so drunk, intoxicated, egoistic, lost control over his senses, sadasad vivekaha nasti, blinded by the power. All these things you can actually take as different shades of this particular word. So kshiba iti dhatuhu plus kta kshiba iti atra nipatanam bhavati. Let's look at the prakriya. Kshiba made iti dhatuhu kta pratyaya gacchati. Now at this point in time, it is actually a set dhatu. Therefore, idagama is expected to come, but the final form is kshiba, and therefore idagama does not come. So idagamasya abhavaha nipatyate. No other sutra. So idagamasya abhavaha nipatyate. Kshiba plus kta, it does not come up. On the second line, something even more interesting happens. The ta part of the pratyaya is removed. So the pratyaya is a full ta. It is half ta plus a. Out of that, only the half ta is being removed. So pratyaye vidyamanaha ta varnaha, takaraha, not the ta aksharam, but takaraha. The individual half ta is being removed. A remains, and then kshiba plus a varnamedanam krutva kshiba iti siddhyati. So there are two different steps that are given as nipatana. Kshiba plus ta idagamasya abhavaha nipatyate. Kshib plus a pratyetakarasya lopaha nipatyate. The ta is going away by nipatana. Kshiba iti atra antimam rupam siddhyati. It turns out that some people give a different derivation for this particular kshiba word. So this is one possible derivation, and there is another possible derivation for this particular word. We start with kshiba plus ta, and we do the normal idagama. So we don't say idagamasya abhava nipatyate and so on. We do the normal idagama. So we say kshiba plus e plus ta ardha dhatuka sed valadehe. Valadi pratyasti ardha dhatuka sed valade iti idagama bhavati. And now in the next step, we have E, we have half ta, and then we have a after it. So E and half ta is being removed by the nipatana. So agrima sopane kim bhavati? Itta iti fraction yaha asti, amshaha yaha asti, tasya lopaha bhavati. So you do the idagama, and then E and half ta is being removed. So essentially you are doing the same thing. First, you are saying idagama, on the left side, in one prakriya, you are saying idagama will not come, and therefore ta will go away. In the second prakriya, you are saying idagama will come, and then that idagama along with ta will go away. So essentially, eventually it boils down to same thing, but there are these two different versions of the prakriya, And this is a very unique example where both of these versions have been given for a certain reason. People very rarely discuss these reasons in any courses because it's deep embedded somewhere in Padamanjari or Bhashya, but we'll talk about these aspects today. So basically, yeah, somebody is saying a lot of stuff is going on just for giving a final word. That is correct. This is a lot of theoretical things are here in coming up. In fact, on the next slide, even much more theoretical stuff is coming up. Is basically play on words, is basically people trying to push and pull gyrations. People is trying to pull their gray cells so that they can do some, krida with the words. It's as beautiful as that, or as simple as that. Those who are true Vyakarnas, those who enjoy playing with words, will really find this particular exercise very fascinating, the one that I'm discussing, about to discuss. So there are two different prakriyas on the face of it. In one prakriya, there is an idagama does not come up and pratyayatakarasya lopaha nipatyate. So there are two steps of nipatanas. Please pay close attention to my words. There are two steps of nipatanas. Whereas in the second prakriya, we do the idagama by the normal track, so we don't have to cause any deviation for that particular step, and we have a single step of nipatana. What is nipatana? It's a deviation from the normal prakriya. So it's about whether you are deviating 2 times or whether you are deviating 1 time. That's all the difference is there. So that's how the word kshiba is being derived. And similarly, the remaining two. So we have krusha and we have ullagha. So same thing happens for both of them. Anena prakarena krusha ityasya vishaye तथा च लाघ उत्त plus लाघ इत्यस्य विषये अपि भवति. Two prakriyas will come for each of them. Now this nipatana, because it comes in the same sutra and there is anupasargat over there, this nipatana will not come for upasargas. Obviously, when you say ullagha, there is already one upasarga given over there. So other upasargas are not allowed. So etat nipatanam aniradishtasya upasargasya upasthito na bhavati. So kshiba is mentioned as it is. So other upasargas are not allowed. Krusha is mentioned as it is. So other upasargas are not allowed. Ullagha is mentioned with the upasarga utta. So other upasargas are not allowed. So pra plus kshiba is not allowed. Pra plus krusha is not allowed. Pra plus utta plus lagha is not allowed. So anything that is not given in that particular sutram is not allowed. So pra plus kshiba, normal idagama will happen and normal prakriya will happen. Prakshivita iti bhavati. Pra plus krusha plus ta prakrushita iti bhavati. Pra plus uta plus lagha plus ta prolaghita iti bhavati. So normal prakriya will happen only for those particular words kshiba, krusha and uta plus lagha. We have two different possible sets of prakriyas. Let's read the vyakhyanam and then I'll come to this linguistic circus that I was talking about. We have not even started the discussion yet. So let's read the basic meaning of the sutra first. Anupasarga thulla kshiba krusholagha thulla kshiba krusha ullagha ityete nipatyante nachet upasargat uttaraha bhavanti. If there is upasarga, this sutra is not applicable. Phullaha iti phala visharane ityetasmad dhatoho uttarasya nishtatakarasya nakaraha lakaraha nipatyate utvam id abhavaha siddha eva. So he is quickly writing the other steps of the prakriya and he is saying those steps are already siddha because of appropriate sutras. So what steps? The uttva, look at this, the ukaradesha. We have written this. Ticha iti akarasya uttvam and id nishedha is by aditascha. So he's quoting these two steps, id nishedha and uttvam. These two steps are already doable using existing sutras. So uttvam idabhavaha siddha. Siddha doesn't mean asiddha siddha of Tripadi. Siddha means doable using given sutras. So uttvam idabhavaha siddha nishtatakarasya lakara nipatyate. Perfectly tells what is given and what is a nipatana. Ktvatvantasya api etad latvam ishyate. This is very important because all these nipatanas are kta pratyante nipatanas. If a nipatana is a kta pratyante nipatana, it cannot extend towards ktavatu pratyaya purely because the word itself catches only the kta part. Understand this aspect. I'm going to talk about it again 2 classes later, but let's get introduced to this. Anytime we say nishtatakarasya adeshah bhavati, that particular sutram is applicable for kta and ktavatu both, because both of them are nishtha. So when we say pacho vaha nishtatakarasya adeshah bhavati, tatra pakva and pakvavan both are acceptable forms. Anytime you use the word nishtha, the sutra will be applicable to both kta and ktavatu. But if a direct nipatana is given only for kta, it will not be used for ktavatu. Arthavad grahane na anarthakasya grahanam iti paribhashaya. If a word in the sutra represents an arthavan fragment, a meaningful fragment, it cannot represent another meaningless fragment in a bigger word. So pulla over here means only pulla. It cannot mean a bigger word which starts with pulla. So pullati, pullavan, whatever 100 words starting with pulla are not to be considered over here. Pulla means only pulla. Similarly, kshiba means only kshiba. This is called arthavad grahane na anarthakasya grahanam. So, just to summarize, nishtha iti uktam asti chet ubhayatra bhavati kta tatha ktavatu. Parantu sakshat nirdeshah krita asti in all the sutras, wherever till now we have seen the nipatanas. Anytime a nipatana is explicitly told for the kta pratyaya, it should not be extended for ktavatu pratyaya. That's what is the general rule, and he is giving an exception only for the word pulla. Twatvantasya api etad latvam ishyate. The normal rule of arthavad grahane nanarthakasya grahanam should not be applied for pullavan. In other words, pullavan iti api sadhurupam eva asti iti prayogam eva anusrutya tatra kashikayam likhitam asti. So there is no other explanation. Prayogas are like that and we are justifying them. So tavatu amtasya tavatvantasya api etad latvamishyate pullaha pullavan iti. That rule is not applicable for kshiba, krusha and ullagha. So all the way, remember many classes ago, somebody asked a question, are kta versus tavatu forms all identical? 99% they are identical in the sense, as soon as you take a kta form and apply a vata on it, do you get a tavatu form? 99% they are identical. कुत्रचित् यत्र निपातनेन क्त प्रत्ययान्त रूपं दत्तमस्ति तत्र तादृशमेव ktavatu प्रत्ययान्त रूपं न क्रियते. These are the examples: kshiba, krishna, ullagha, and also some nipatanas that we saw in the section of idagama, we saw in the section of angakarya and so on. I'll collect them once again at some point in future. So atra tavatvantasya api etad latvamishyate pulla pullavan iti. Then next 3 words he's capturing together. Kshiba, krusha, ullagha iti kshibi krushibhyam utpurvacha लागेहे क्त प्रत्ययस्य तलोपः इडभावश्च निपात्यते. He is giving one part of the prakriya. In one part of the prakriya, the left side, there is an idagamasya abhava and there is a takara lopa. So that's this first prakriya. Idagamasya abhava and pratyaya takarasya lopa. He is saying this is one way of deriving it. Let's read it again. Kshiba krishnullaghaha. All 3 words identical derivation. Iti kshibi krishibhyam utpurvacha laghehe kta pratyasya talopaha idabhavasya nipapyate. So that is one way of giving the derivation. The other way of giving the derivation is you do the nipatanam krutecha idagame it ityasya lopaha. Krutecha idagame, a style of saying idagama has been done. Krutecha idagame it ityasya lopaha. That's what he says later on. Kruteva iti idagame krute it shabda lopaha. So 2 different derivations. First, talopaha and idabhavaha, or idagame krute kruteva iti it shabda lopaha. And then he starts giving the forms. Kshiba, krusha, ullagha, anupasargaditi kim, prafultaha, prakshibitaha, prakrushitaha, prollagitaha, and so on. Then he talks about anupasargat. So these examples are being given. Obviously, ullagha already has an upasarga called utta. So he clarifies other upasargas are not allowed. So laghehe uttaha anyaha upasargaha pratishidyate. And then he gives the vartikam which I told specifically for phulla dhatu 2 slides ago. Utphulla and samphulla is also acceptable. Even if you say anupasargat, these are the two exceptional cases. So then he captures them through the vartika. Utphulla samphullayoho iti vaktavyam, utphullaha samphullaha, and so on. This next part is out of the context. He says there is a word parikrushaha that you see in the language. So it's the krusha, which is the kta pratyayanta form. It is used along with the upasarga. So how can you justify this form parikrushaha? Atra krusha iti rupam tu upasargam vina eva bhavati. Tarhi parikrushaha iti katham sadhu. And then he uses the same trick that we saw earlier. परि इति उपसर्गः कृश इति धातोः प्रति नास्ति तत्र कश्चन अन्यस्य कस्यचन धातोः अध्याहारः क्रियते. So basically this trick we have seen like 2 or 3 classes ago. अत्र किं भवति परिकृशः इत्यत्र परि इति शब्दः क्रियान्तर योगा, different kriya is being expected over here. So क्रियान्तर योगा कृषिं प्रति अनुपसर्गः एव. Krushi does not get pari as an upasarga. Some gama dhatu has to be inserted in between. Parigrataha, krushaha, parikrushaha. So we have seen all these, exactly this argument a few classes ago. Kaumudim pashnamaha. Let me quickly read. There are some aspects that I'll ignore for now. Yifala phullaha. So that's the answer, the final nipatana. Nishtha tasya latvam nipatyate. तवतु एकदेशस्य अपि इदं निपातनम इष्यते. They are explicitly telling about tavatu because the normal norm is that tavatu doesn't come in the picture. If the normal norm would have been both kta and tavatu, there is no reason to tell it. But अर्थवत् ग्रहणेन अनर्थकस्य ग्रहणम् इत्यनेन क्त इत्यस्य विषये कृतं निपातनं तवतु इत्यस्य विषये न अतिदिश्यते. अतः अत्र विशेषरूपेण तवत्वेः तवतु एकदेशस्य अपि इदं निपातनम् इति उक्तमस्ति. Phullavan immediately gives the final form as Phullavan. Shibadishu tu kta pratyasyeva talopaha. So kta pratyaya itself has been removed. The ta of the kta pratyaya itself has been removed. Tasya asiddhatvat praptasya itaha abhavasya nipatyate. So essentially he is saying first he is explaining the right side prakriya. He is explaining E will come over there. So idagama will come over there. It's coming at the first place before even we enter the nishtha prakaranam or before we enter the tripadi. So E will come and then tasya tasya abhavaha, and that will go away. So tasya asiddhatvat praptasya itaha abhavasya nipatyate. So idagamasya abhavaha nipatyate. You can either get an abhava of the idagama or you can have the prapti and get rid of that it over here. I think in this one line which is kept bold over here, he is only discussing the first prakriya, not the second. He is saying idagamasya abhavaha nipatyate. Explicit line is over there. Idagamasya itaha abhavaha cha nipatyate. And then he gives kshibaha mattaha, krushaha, tanuhu, ullaghaha, nirogaha. Meanings have been given. Anupasargat iti kim, prafultaha, prakshibitaha, prakrushitaha, prollagitaha, and so on. And then somebody asked us question a few minutes ago. Exactly same question is being quoted over here. Katham tarhi lodhra drumam sanumata prafullamiti. So there is a prafulla word. How is that being derived? As I mentioned earlier, it's a different dhatu. There is a pulla vikasane iti dhatu. Tasmat pachadyacha iti अच प्रत्यय कृते प्रफुल्ल नो चेत् त प्रत्यय कृते प्रफुल्लित इति सर्वाणि रूपाणि सिद्ध्यन्ति. सूत्रम तु फुल्त आदि निवृत्त्यर्थम. This sutram compulsory makes it fulla. It's not an optional sutra. So fulla will be coming instead of fulta. So what essentially is saying is if you go to the prakriya, this takarasya lakaradesha is a compulsory nipatanam. It's not like phulta on one side and phulla on other side. If it is a simple phal dhatu, it always has to be phulla. If it is along with the upasarga, it will always be something like praphulta. Ta to la will not happen. So that's what he's saying. Sutram to phulta ityadi nivrutyartham. Nivrutyartham means to block those forms from being derived. So in order to block the forms called phulta, standalone phulta being derived, the sutram has been given. And finally he gives the vartika utphulla samphullayoho upasankhyanam. Now there is a question over here. He in the sense Panini could have written a sutram for getting rid of takara or replacing the entire ta by a. Yes, that is very much possible. He chose to give probably a nipatana. I don't know, maybe it was in some way helping him or causing alpaksharatvam over here. So there is no discussion on why he chooses a nipatanam over having an explicit sutram to give a pratyay, but that's definitely an acceptable hypothesis. Now start something very interesting. Now whatever I have told till now is what you will see in Kashika, you will see in Kaumudi. Now for next 15 minutes, whatever I'm going to teach is a very obscure piece of Vyakarana Shastra. I don't think Kashika or Kaumudi discuss it from any angle, but I found it very interesting and it actually completes some discussion that we started yesterday. So I don't want to keep something that I started yesterday as a hanging. So let's continue that right now. So we have these two prakriyas that we saw on the previous slide. Let's focus on the first prakriya, the prakriya on the left hand side. What is happening? Shiba plus kta ityatra tatra nipatana dvayam asti. Prathamam tu idagamasya abhavaha nipatyate tadanantaram pratyayatakarasya lopaha nipatyate. Both of these have been nipatanas. Fair enough. Which sutra gives these nipatanas? A single sutram, anupasargat thullakshiba krushollaghaha. This sutram gives this nipatanam. Fair enough. But now think about it. What is this sutra doing? This sutra is giving a nipatanam on the idagama. That is something very strange. This sutram is in Tripadi. Idagama happens in Sapada Saptadhyay all the way before Tripadi even comes in the picture. So Idagama is step number 6 over here. Then we have multiple different steps. All the steps are in Sapada Saptadhyay. Tripadi is completely asiddha towards Sapada Saptadhyay. So the obvious question that comes over here is, how the hell a sutram of Tripadi can do an abhava of an idagama of a Sapada Saptadhyay? Because when idagama is being done on Sapada Saptadhyay in step number 6, there is no existence of Tripadi. Sapada Saptadhyayim prati Tripadi asiddha asti. So when the sutras of the idagama are trying to decide whether the idagama should happen or not, they have no idea that there is a sutra called Anupasargat Pullakshiba Krushollaghaha which will block the idagama. So how can idagamasya abhava be decided in step number 6 when the Tripadi is completely asiddha, or when Tripadi doesn't even exist for those sutras of idagama? Very apt question over here. So idagama vidhanam tu sapada saptadhyayam bhavati. Tatra Tripadyaha sutrani asiddhani santi. When you are doing idagama, you can see other sutras. So for example, if there is a idagama nisheda somewhere in chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, somewhere we can see all that. But there is an idagama nisheda all the way in Tripadi which is asiddha. So idagama sutras cannot see that particular nishedha. And therefore, kshibadhatoho vishaye agre gatva tripadyam idagamasya abhavaha bhavishyati iti idagama samaye naiva drishyate. I can't even expect that to happen. So how do I know that idagama is not to be done? Tarhi atra idabhavaha katham nipatyate? Very precise and logical question. And this was put forth by Vartikakara or Bhashyakara. And in order to answer this weird corner case, the Vartika that we started discussing yesterday was given निष्ठादेशः शत्व स्वर प्रत्यय id vidhishu siddha vachah. So the Vartikam that we studied yesterday, nishtadeshah shatva swara pratyaya id vidhishu siddha vachah. Shatva thing we studied in details for the vrishcha dhatu. We got the final form as vrukna. I said that remaining three things I will teach in tomorrow's class. The one of these three things is coming up over here. So there is an id vidhishu siddha vachah. So whatever sutras of nishtha takara desha are there, whatever stuff they are talking about the idagama, it is visible by the sutras of idagama. Idagamasya samaye nishtha pratyayasya आदेशस विधायकेषु सूत्रेषु इडागम विशिष्टम दत्तम कार्यम सिद्धम ज्ञेयम. Some spelling mistakes over there, typing mistakes. So आदेश विधायकेषु सूत्रेषु इडागम विशिष्टम दत्तम कार्यम. In all these yellow section, whatever idagama specific stuff has been mentioned, please consider it as siddha towards the 7.2 sutras of idagama. All idagama sutras are in 7.2. Although for them the entire tripadi doesn't exist, still as an exception, look into this small section of yellow colored nishtatakarasya adeshaha. Look where idagama related aspects are being mentioned, which is only this sutra, Anupasargat Phullakshiba, and it's only these three dhatus. That's what I was mentioning yesterday. Only three dhatus in entire dhatu patha. Shiba, Krusha, and Ullagha or Lagha. So for these three dhatus, what is happening is that the sutra of Tripadi gives the nishedha of idagama that is being seen by the sutras of Sapada Saptadhyayi. So nishtadeshaha shatva swara pratyaya id vidhishu siddha vachah idagamasya samaye nishtha pratyayasya आदेश विधायकेषु सूत्रेषु इडागम विशिष्टम यत्किमपि कार्यम दत्तम अस्ति तत् सिद्धम ज्ञेयम. So that actually answers the shows the purpose of the second or the last of those four. There are four conditions. There is shatva, which we saw yesterday. There is id vidhi, which we saw today. Only this very weird case of idagama nishedha nipatana, which needs to be visible over there in Sapada Saptadhyayi. So that's for the id vidhi. The remaining two cases, swara and pratyaya, are also right over here. And ironically, these remaining two cases, swara and pratyaya, are about the second part of the prakriya or second style of the prakriya. So as I mentioned, there are two different prakriyas for kshiba plus kta. There was a prakriya on the left side with the two nipatanas. In that prakriya, the id, this part, the id vidhishu, this part was justified. Now there is a second prakriya on the right hand side with a single nipatana, and it is this prakriya where the swara and the pratyaya part will be justified. So a single dhatu, kshiba, or to be technically correct, three dhatus, kshiba, krusha, and ullagha. For these three dhatus, swara, pratyaya, and idvidhi, all these three aspects are being justified, given in this Vartika, nishtadesha, shatva, swara, pratyaya, idvidhishu, siddha, vachah. So let's see how. Let's take a look at the prakriya again. Kshiba plus kta, idagama is happening as usual. Kshiba plus a, in the second type of prakriya, idagama will be there, and then there will be lopa of idagama. Lopa in the sense idagama e and then ta, itta. This whole thing will be removed. That's what we saw in the second style of prakriya. That gives us kshiba. Fair enough. No problem so far. Now we ask a question. The question is, how many swaras does the word kshiba have? Kshiba ityasmin shabde kati swaraha santi iti prashna. Now obviously it's a question that one will ask to a kid. So obviously there are two swaras. There is an e present after ksha and there is an a present after ba. So there are two swaras. Now it turns out that there are sutras in the Swara Prakaranam. Swara Prakaranam is 6.1 or 6.2. Both of them are Swara Prakaranam. So there are sutras in Swara Prakaranam which will tell the Udatta, Anudatta or Swarita swaras of a word after looking at the number of swaras. So there are actually sutras which will say, if there are two swaras, then make it Adyudatta. If there are three swaras, then make something else. If there is one swara, then make something else. So they will actually count the number of swaras and then they will tell which should be Udatta and which should be Anudatta. That is the reason why I asked you to count the number of swaras. So that is one point. Second point is that in Tadhita Prakaranam, there are sutras which will very weird, but there are sutras which will give a particular Tadhita Pratyaya after counting the number of swaras. So it will say there are two swaras, give a Than Pratyaya. There are three swaras, give a Thaka Pratyaya. So for the same context, a different pratyaya in the Tadhita Prakaranam will be given by counting the number of swaras in the word. So the number of ach letters in the word is very crucial in the prakriya. If there are two ach letters, a certain udatta anudatta karya will happen. If there are two ach letters, a certain different swara will happen or certain different pratyaya will happen and so on. Now keeping these three particular points, let's these two particular points, let's look at this. Shiba actually has two swaras, but when it comes to the sutras of Swara Prakaranam, which are in 6.1, and when it comes to the sutras of Tadhita Prakaranam, which are in chapter 4 and chapter 5, for all those sutras, Tripadi is not existent. Tripadi is asiddha. Therefore, the lopa of ikara, which is done in Tripadi, Tripadyam atra kim krutam asti? Ikarasya lopaha krutaha asti. So, ikarasya krutaha ayam lopaha sapada saptadhyayaha sutraihi na drishyate. What it means? It means that if you take a sutra of chapter 6.1 and if you ask how many swaras are there in the word kshiba, it's going to say there are three swaras. There is a swara which is a dirgha ikara after ksha, there is a swara which is a after ba, and there is a swara e sitting in between. So the fact that e has gone is not visible to the sutras of Sapada Saptadhyayi because the evaporation of e is happening in Tripadi, which is asiddha towards Sapada Saptadhyayi. Therefore, a sutra in 6.1 or 6.2 which determines the Udatta Anudatta swaras, this sutra will think that there are three swaras. A sutra in Tadhita Prakaranam which decides a thap pratyaya versus than pratyaya, it will think that there are three swaras and then it will give wrong pratyaya over there, it will give wrong swara over there. We actually want a pratyaya corresponding to two swara version. We actually want the udattatva corresponding to two swara version, and therefore it is crucial that the sutras of Tadhita Prakaranam or the sutras of Swara Prakaranam see the transformation done at this particular step. Let's read this and then we will conclude with the remaining two fragments of the Vartika. So, asyam prakriyayam e ityasya lopaha tripadyam bhavati. This e goes away in Tripadi. Ayam lopaha sapada saptadhyayim prati asiddhaha asti. Ataha sapada saptadhyayaha drishtya Shiba ityasmin shabde trayaha swaraha santi. There is a swara which is e, there is a swara which is a, and there is an e, which is, even though it is gone, we know it as a Vaiyakarana, but sutras don't know it, they don't see the Tripadi. So, trayaha swaraha santi. That is a problem because the sutras of 6.1, the actual sutra that we want to use is a one that is given for two swaras. So let's read this. Kshiba ityasya swara nirnaya samaye nishtha cha dvyajanat ityanena uktam adidattatvam ishyate. So there is a sutra in 6.1, nishtha cha dvyajanat, divyach iti asti, divyach. So if a nishtha pratyayanta word is a dvyach word, if it has two ach letters, then a certain udat tattvam is given. So nishtha cha dvyajanat ityanena yasmin nishtha pratyayanta shabde dvau svarau staha tasya vishaye adyudat tattvam dattam asti. This adyudat tattvam, we want it for kshiba. Why? Because obviously it has two swaras. Even if the sutras don't see it, that's not a problem for us. We can see it, so we really need it to be adyudatta. And therefore, for this kshiba, we would like to apply nishtha cha dvyajanat. Similarly, this kshiba is a pratipadika. So as soon as you apply a dhatu plus krut pratyaya, you get a pratipadika. Pratipadikat agre tadhyuta pratyaya bhavitum arhanti. So similarly, kshiba shabdat tarati ityasmin sandarbhe. We will not go in the details of this tadhyuta sutram, but if there is a certain context called tarati, in that context, for the word kshiba, there are various pratyayas possible. There is a thaka pratyaya possible and there is a thana pratyaya possible. The thana pratyaya is given for dvyacha words. The sutra, as I said, tadhyuta prakaranam is chapter 4, chapter 5. So there is a sutram in chapter 4. Now dvyachaha thana. Now you can see this. Dvyacha word asti. If there are two swaras, then you get a thana pratyaya. Again for kshiba, we want to have a thana pratyaya. So shibena tarati. So what is kshiba? Something that is sturdy, something that is strong, probably. Tena tarati. So previous meanings like egoistic, drunk, and so on might not be very much applicable over here. But kshibena tarati asmin sandarbhe than pratyaya bhashayam ishyate. Kimartham ishyate? If you apply a thaka pratyaya, form is different. If you apply a thana pratyaya, form is different. We will not go in the tadhyuta prakriya right now, but take my words for granted. If you apply a thaka pratyaya, there is a different form. If you apply a thana pratyaya, there is a different form. So the form itself tells us that we want a thana pratyaya, and therefore the fact that kshiba has two swaras is now expected that the tadhyuta sutras know it. Only then we will be able to apply now dvachasthan over there. Ataha dvayoho. So if you apply kshiba plus thana, we will get a kshibika. That's the desired form. So etayoho dvayoho karyayoho sampadanartham. Which two karyas? The adyudat tattva given by the swara and the than pratyaya given in the tadhyuta prakaranam. Etayoho dvayoho karyayoho sampadanartham kshiba iti shabdaha divyachkaha. One which has two ach letters is called dvyachka. Dvyachkaha eva grahitavyaha. And therefore, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that this particular step of Tripadi should be visible by the Swara Prakaranam and it should be visible by the Pratyaya Vidhana Prakaranam. Tadhyuta Pratyayas wherever they are being told and Swaras wherever they are being told, the Udatta, Anudatta and so on. Those two prakaranas or the appropriate sutras in those prakaranas, those sutras should be able to see this particular ikara lopa. Not necessarily the entire Tripadi, but that particular step, the ikara lopa. And that's the reason why the additional word of swara and additional word of pratyaya is being added in this vartika. So shatva, swara, pratyaya, idvidhishu nishtadeshaha siddha asti. The nishtha adesha. Adesha is, it includes lopa also. So ikarasya yaha lopaha kriyate, saha lopaha kasya krute siddha asti. Shattvasya krute, swarasya krute, pratyayasya krute and idagamasya krute siddhaha asti. So nishtha pratyasya krutaha adeshaha, like takara lopa or ikara lopa or whatever, swara karyartham tadhita pratyvidhanartham cha siddhaha asti. Somebody is saying this is like trying to justify by hook or crook. That is correct. It's all basically a mental game done by Vaiyakarnas. That is the primary reason why we don't see this, being justified anywhere in Kashika or anywhere in Kaumudi. It is not a concept that one would teach in the mainstream. So if this was a course, associated with a fixed textbook and a fixed syllabus, I would have definitely not talked about this. But we have a luxury of talking, to be honest, whatever I want. So then I am taking a side step and trying to explain some deeper aspects of the commentary, which is not nothing from my mind. You can actually find all these things in Bhashya. You can find all these things, for example, in Tattva Bodhini, Padamanjari, and so on. In fact, Kashika also has, sorry, my mistake, Kashika also has a quick reference in Namune at some point in time. So let's read this and the whole thing will be clear. The bottom line over here is that we have two different prakriyas. We have, go back few slides, we have two different prakriyas for Kshiba. The first prakriya, the left hand side, will be used to justify one part of that Vartika. The second prakriya will be used to justify two parts of that Vartika. So three parts of the Vartika are being covered purely by Kshiba Dhatu. And fourth part of the Vartika we saw yesterday for the Vrishcha Dhatu, thereby completing the whole set of four cases in this Vartika. So Nishtha Deshaha Shatva. Example was the Vrishcha Dhatu yesterday. Swara, we saw it right now, the Nishthacha Dvyajanat Sutram. Pratyaya, no Dvyachashthan iti tadhita pratyaya. And Idvidhishu, which we saw on the previous slide, Idagamasya Abhavaha. This particular step should be known to the steps of Idagama. Siddhaha Vachaha. The beauty, I'm going to take only 2 minutes over here. The beauty is that two different prakriyas are being combined together. One prakriya, two nipatana, so two aspects, another prakriya, one aspect. That's what Kashika says. Nishtha, let's look at the whole thing. The Vartika is Nishtha Deshaha, Shatvaswara Pratyed Vidishu Siddhaha Vachaha. He explains this. Nishtha Desha, Shatvaswara Pratyed Vidishu Siddhaha Vaktavyaha. Typing mistake. Vrukanaha Vrukraman. That's the Shatva part. Nishtadeshasya siddhatva jhali iti shatvam na bhavati. I have explained this yesterday. Kutvam tu prati asiddha eva iti tad bhavati. So first you have kutva and then instead of shatva you directly have nishthanakara. Is the basic idea over here. Swara pratyaya vidhi id vidhishu kshiba shabda udariyate. Single kshiba dhatu for three cases. Tatra cha nipatanam anekadha samashriyate. Two different nipatanas are being talked simultaneously. That's what it means when he says nipatanam anekadha aneka prakarasya nipatanam samashriyate. Dha is used to indicate prakaras, 2 types, 3 types, 4 types. So multiple types of nipatanas, basically 2 types, but he says anekadha. Na ekadha means anekadha. So nipatanam anekadha samashriyate. Yada kshibehe, and let me read this. I think I've explained it multiple times. Yada kshibehe nisthayam iti krute ichabdalopaha nipatyate tada kshibaha iti samnyayam ichabdalopasya asiddhatvat nishthacha dvijanat iti swaraha na prapnoti. So that's the swara related thing. Kshibena tarati kshibikaha iti than na prapnoti. So he's only listing the problems. So he says we want kshibika, but it will not be doable because of that asiddhatva. We want the adyudatatva, but it will not be doable because of that asiddhatva. And in order to allow that, we need to have this vartika. So that's the second prakriya that we saw. And the first prakriya, yadatu takara lopo nipatyate, only the ta has to be removed because idagama doesn't come. Tada tasya asiddhatvat idagama prapnoti. That particular step will need to be seen by the sutras of idagama, otherwise idagama will come over there. I know this is a little bit complex, but I have explained this in significant details. This is purely for your enjoyment, understanding. So if this is becoming too complex, you can ignore it. Those of you who are interested in detailed aspects of grammar, please spend some time in trying to read and understand this. There is no homework associated with any of this because this is pretty complex as compared to what topic we are discussing currently. Let's take a few more sutras. We still have 20 minutes. I think we should be able to give justice. Maybe 5 more minutes, but I should be able to cover. So we finished Anupasargat Phullakshiba Krusholaghaha. Let's take the next sutram. Very simple. Nuda, Vida, Und, Tra, Gra, Ribhyah, Anyatarasyam Nakaradesha Bhavati. So we come back to Nakaradesha, but now it is optional Nakaradesha. Multiple dhatus Nuda, Vida, Und, Trai, Gra, and Ri. Etesham Vishaye Vikalpena Nakaradesha Bhavati. So let's take quick look. Nuda. This is a dakaranta. So radabhyam nishthato naha was forcing a nakaradesha. Like bhida becomes bhinna and chida becomes chinna. Nuda plus ta was forcing as a final form as nunna. But that has been optionally blocked. So nuda, nunnaha, nuttaha. Both of these forms are acceptable. Similarly, vida, vinna ityasya sthane Nishedhaha tatra vikalpena datta asti. Undi. All these three are dakaranta. So radabhyam nishthatona ittenena nityam nakaradeshe prapte saha vikalpyate. Traing. So here it is sanyogadehe ato dhator yanvan. So yanvata iti sutrena. So trai becomes tra. It is sanyogadi. There is a yanvan dhatu r is there and it is akaranta. So again compulsory na was coming. For ghra, exactly the same. Sanyogade rato dhator yanvataha. Compulsory na was coming. It's being made optional. So for all these initial cases, this sutra acts like a prapta vibhasha. Prapte ida nakaradeshe saha vikalpena nishidyate. For the last dhatu over here, ri, even though it is sanyogadi and even though it is yanvan, it is not akaranta and it is not dakaranta or rephanta. It is not odit. It is not in ladis. So none of your previous conditions are satisfied. So for ri dhatu, there was no nakaradesha and it is brought in optionally. So this is aprapta vibhasha for ri. Ri ityasya sthane vikalpena pratyasya nakaradesha vidhiyate. Anyesham vishaye vikalpena pratyasya nakaradesha nishidyate. Ataha atra ubhaya vibhasha asti. Both of these are simultaneously being applicable. This was a question in yesterday's homework. Kidrishi vibhasha asti? The answer is ubhaya vibhasha asti. So nuda, vida, unda, tra, ghra, ri, and so on. Nishtatakarasya nakaradesha bhavati anyatarasyam vikalpena. He is giving all those examples and so on. Ri itte tasmad apraptam natvam itaresham nityam praptam vikalpyate. That's basically ubhaya vibhasha. Vida vicharane ityasya videhe iha grahana mishrate. So he says this vida is actually from the rudhadi gana, from the 7th gana. I want to spend a 5 minutes on this particular point, even if it means the class gets a little extended, but let's concentrate this for a particular point. There are actually 4 vida dhatus in the dhatu patha. 5 of them, but one of them is in 10th gana, so we can ignore that. 10th always is a simple case because there will be a niche and the prakriya will be very easy. So we'll ignore this last thing, but let's concentrate on these 4 dhatus. There is a vida jnane from adadi gana. There is a vida sattayam from divadi gana. There is a vida labhe from tudadi gana. And there is a vida vicharane from rudhadi gana. The fate of each of these is different when it comes to the nishtha prakriya. So vida jnane, it is a normal set dhatu. The normal idagama will come vidita iti atra rupam bhavati. So that's exactly, he in fact captures that in a very beautiful karika. So he says evam hi uktam and he gives a karika, a shloka over here. Vettestu vidito dishtha vidyater vinna ishyate vinter vinnasya vittascha bhoga vittascha vindatehe. So it's a single shloka, single karika in which he has given 4 different vida dhatus and their fate. So he starts by saying veti. The first dhatu vida is veti. He's giving the pratham purusha ekvachana form. Veti. What happens to this veti dhatu? Simplest prakriya, idagama will happen, kta pratyaya will be added, vidita iti rupam siddhyati. So vida plus kta becomes vidita. That's for the vida adadiganasya dhatu. So vetehe to viditaha nishtha. Vidyate, the next dhatu in the list is vida. For the divadi gana, it is vidyate. So yakaraha agacchati tatra vidyate. Now this is clearly anit dhatu, so no question of idagama. Vida plus ta, radabhyam nishthato naha will cause the to na. Pratyay takara will similarly become nakara. Vinna iti rupam siddhyati. So again that is simple. That's what he justifies. Vidyatehe vinna ishyate. So vetehe viditaha nishtha, vidyatehe vinnaha ishyate. The third dhatu is little complex. Vidalabhe iti dhatu asti. Ayam dhatu set asti. Tathapi अस्मात् धातोः विहितस्य क्वसु प्रत्ययस्य इडागमः विकल्प्यते. This has been taught while discussing idagama, and therefore यस्य विभाषा इति इडागमः निष्ठायाः इडागमः निषिध्यते. So for vidalabhe dhatu, the sixth gana tudadi gana dhatu, even though the dhatu is set, क्वसु प्रत्यये परे विभाषा भवति, इडागम विभाषया आगच्छति, अतः निष्ठा प्रत्यय से इडागमः निषिध्यते. And in this particular context, we also saw a sutram vittam bhoga pratyayo. No, vittam bhoga pratyayo, which some few classes ago, which gives the vitta as a nipatana form when it comes to bhoga or pratyaya. I think it's somewhere over here. Let me see if I can quickly find it. Probably not right now. There's a sutram with, let's see where it is. Anyway, there was a sutram vittam bhoga pratyayoho. That's the sutram which will cause vitta and vinna. So dhanam ityasmin arthe vittam, pratyaya jnani manusha ityasmin arthe api vittam, anyatra vinnam iti bhavati. So that's the last part. Bhoga vittasya vindatehe. So the sixth gana dhatu vindati, it will become vitta. In the bhoga means bhoga pratyaya. In the case of bhoga pratyaya, it will become vitta, is what he's saying in this last component. And finally, the fourth dhatu, the vida vicharane dhatu from the rudhadi gana, this is the dhatu that is being discussed right now over here. It is optionally vinna or vitta. So radabhyam nishthato nahati nityam nakaradeshe prapte anena sutrena vikalpyate nishidhyate vikalpena nishidhyate. So it is vitta. So that's the third fragment. Vintehe, the dhatu of the rudhadi gana, it has two forms, vinna and vitta. So the whole karika captures four important dhatus, all called vida, with their four different fates. Vittestu viditaha nishtha, vidyatehe vinna ishyate, vintehe vinnascha vittascha. This is the rudhadi gana. And bhoga vittascha vindatehe. So there is a vitta bhoga pratyayo. In the interest of time, I'm not spending time in finding it out. So this is the karika that explains the fate of various vida dhatus. Kaumudim pathamaha. Ebhyaha nishthatasya nahava nunnaha nuttaha vida vicharane raudhadika eva gruhyate undina parena sahacharyat. So unda is raudhadika. So vida vicharane is also raudhadika. And then he explains vinna, vitta, vettestu vidita, vidyate, vinna. The same prakriya that he is given in karika, he's giving two examples over here. So that completes nuda vidondatraghra ribhyonyatarasya. We'll take a few more sutras and we will stop because I don't want to extend this to the next week. The next three sutras we have already studied. Nadhyakhya pru murchimadam has already been studied. Vitta bhoga pratyeho, it was right here and I was searching somewhere else. So vitta bhoga pratyeho, that was the sutram I was talking about, and I was searching in some idagama papers. So vitto bhoga pratyeho and vittam shakalam. So all these three sutras we have already studied. The next one is the only important sutram, and then within 2 minutes we should be able to close. Runamadhamaranye iti antimam eva asya vargasya sutram. Antimam is antimam important sutram. Rest all is like 30 seconds. So runam adhamaranye. Runa, this is a nipatana. Runa iti shabdaha nipatpyate. ru iti dhatuhu अस्मात् धातोः क्त प्रत्यये कृते runam iti shabdah nipatyate. So pratyay takara becomes na, and then that na later on becomes na. Everything has been given runam iti nipatyate. Kasmin arthe nipatyate? Adhamaranye. A donation, not necessarily donation, lending out some money with, say, some very stringent condition. Adhama or adhama runam. Adhama ityukte, you basically give out some money to somebody who is needy, but because purely that person is needy, you add arbitrary conditions like I'll give you 100 rupees today and next week you have to return me 500 rupees or something like that, and the poor person has no choice but to take the runa from you because he is in deep need of that. So adhabarniye. So there are normal rules of transaction that are acceptable by the society. You cross those limits and you purposely create some complex or stringent rules on the other party. That is called adhamarna. The sutra says runam adhamarnye. So adhamarnya essentially means somebody who is taking a debt in a transaction which is extremely stringent. So that particular money that is being given, that particular debt that is being given is called runam. So even now, one point to understand over here is that even though the word runam as given by the sutram is about those adhama cases, the non rule obedient cases or complex cases, the general norm is that whether it is adhamarana or whether it is uttamarana. Uttamarana means something that is within the rule. Adhamarana is something that is outside the rule. So somebody is saying taking undue advantage of somebody's misfortune. That's exactly the meaning of the word adhamaranya. Take advantage of somebody's poor condition and try to impose arbitrary conditions on that transaction. That's called adhamarana. But at the same time, if you do not engage into that particular transactions, and if you obey whatever normal rules of the society, we will call it uttamarana. So uttamarana and adhamarana, in both of these cases, the word runa will still be justified. So that's what the sutra says. So even though the sutra says adhamaranye, we use the word runa to indicate a transaction that is both within the norms and outside the norms. So runam ityetasmat dhatoho uttarasya nishtatakarasya nakaraha nipatyate adhamarana vishaye adhamaha rune adhamarana etasmad. I'll explain this part, just keep this particular line aside. Yadi evam uttamaranaha iti na siddhyati na esha doshaha. So he says even though the sutra says adhamaranye, we can have uttamaranye also. Kalantara deya vinimay upalakshad chedupattam. So as long as there is some specific time between which the runa is given and it is returned, irrespective of whether that particular transaction is problematic on the part of the receiver, or whether it is, the receiver is happy because everything is going according to the norms, either of the way, we will call it as a runa. So let me repeat this point. Please understand. Adhamaranya, according to the sutram, it says it is always a dukkhadayakam. Why? Because of conditions imposed on that runam. However, the usage in the language is both ways. The normal runa, which is a good runa, and a bad runa, both of them will be called runa. That's exactly what is explained in Tattva Bodhini. Adhamam ityukte dukkha pradam runamasya saha adhamarnaha tasya bhavaha adhamarnyam tena vyavahara visheshaha lakshate. Adhamarana does not mean a person who is taking the runa or the person who is giving the runa. It is a vyavahara vishesha. The word adhamaranya over here indicates the transaction. Vishesha, a specific type of transaction. What type of transaction? The one that is stringent on the receiving party. That's what the original sutra is, but it's not being used in that way. The runam word, which is given in the context of adhamaranya, is being used in all sorts of transactions. So don't get carried away by saying, for example, somebody is pointing, is matru runa, pitru runa is unjustifiable and all that. Don't get carried by what is written in the sutram. Commentaries make it clear. Uttamarana iti api siddhyati. Kimartham siddhyati? It is a simple runa. Kalantara deya vinimaya upalakshartham. You give at some point in time, and after certain period, you return it. As long as this particular situation is fulfilled, as long as this particular criterion is fulfilled, whether it is dukkha pradam or whether it is sukha pradam, we will still call it runa. So uttamaranaha api siddhyati iti ashayena vyachaste adharmana vyavaharaha iti sacha vyavaharaha datru grihitraha sambandhi bhavati. Any kind of transaction between a donor and the receiver, whether it is whether the receiver is happy returning it back because it is within the norms, or whether the receiver is pressurized or whatever, sad returning it back because it is, he thinks he is being exploited, whatever it is case, you still continue to use the word runa, because adhamarnya is given by Panini himself, and in addition there is a word uttamarna which is himself, Panini himself uses that word uttamarna in a sutra called dhareruttamarana. So in a sutram called dhareruttamarana, Panini uses the word uttamarna, and in this particular sutram he uses the word adhamarna. So essentially the word runa should be taken to represent the normal debt, any kind of debt which makes you happy, which makes you sad, which is according to rules, not according to rules, whatever debt is there will be called runa. Now I know I'm running out of time, but I want to point out something very interesting over here. Look at this sutram. The sutram is very peculiar. It is peculiar because it defines the word runam. Runam is a nipatana. It is given by this sutram. It defines the word runam and it uses the same word in the same sutram. So runam iti shabdaha nipatyate. So this is a sutram that will teach you the word nipatanam. But the sutra itself is runam adhamaranye. How is the word adhamaranya derived? Adhamasya runasya bhavaha. So adhama plus runa becomes adhamarana, tasya bhavaha adhamaranyam. So adhamaranya shabda itself uses the word which is being given by the sutram. There is kind of self-reference in the sutram. The sutram itself will define a word which is being used over here. There is another sutram in Ashtadhyayi which does like this. I leave it to you to think which particular that sutra is. There is a sutram where the sutra itself is used to derive the word used in the sutram. Cyclic, some funny cyclic dependency on the sutram itself. So that's a side exercise. You can think about it. We are running out of time, so let me quickly, I can skip the few questions and let me just go ahead. There is only one question that I'll take. What is the meaning of nirdesha lingam? It means that lakshanayam means in the context of the sutra patha. There is a sutra called dhareruttamaranaha. That reference is itself a proof that uttamarana is also justified by Panini. So whether it is adhamarana or whether it is uttamarana is being justified by Panini is what is written over here. Anyway, agre gachamaha, I'll probably need 5 more minutes. The next sutra is natta, nishatta and so on. It is related to Vaidika context. Vedeshu tatra nishtha-nakarasya abhavasya nipatanam bhavati. So nasatta, nishatta, anutta, praturta, surta, gurta, all these are in the context of the Vedas. I'm just writing the sutra for the sake of completion. We don't want to go in the details of this particular sutram. If you want, you can read the Kashika. It will tell what happens in the normal loka and what happens in the Vedas. So it's just a nipatana. Few usages are there in the Vedas. That completes the discussion of the nishtha-takarasya adesha, yellow color. Then there are a few sutras, halicha. Everybody is expected to know halicha. Ikarasya dirghadesha bhavati, tirna, purta, turna, urna. Immediate next sutra, upadhayancha. Everybody is expected to know that. immediate next sutra, nashta, immediate in the sense, next in the sequence is nashtapadantasya jhali. Everybody is expected to know that. So you have halicha, upadhayancha, and nashtapadantasya jhali. There is dhode lopaha, but we will come to it after the shtutva. So dhode lopa is to be used after the shtutvam. So we will come to it, or after, I think shtutvam itself. Or hodha also. After doing hodha, you can use it. I'll come to it towards the end. It requires reverse direction in Tripadi. I'll come to it at an appropriate time. So that completes nashtapadantasya jhali. Basically, nakarasya anuswaraha bhavati. That's it. That's all for today. Starting from next week, we will start with this visargasya shakaradesha. So visargasya shakaradesha, or the green colored sutras, even if you see a lot of them, all of them have been taught earlier. I'm just going to quickly run through them as a revision. So that's on one of the days, on Thursday, and then remaining part of the Tripadi on Friday. So next week, 2 classes, and we should be able to finish up the 10th sheet. So I think that's it for today. Samapayamaha abhyasaha adyatana vargasya. Actually, very nice homework today. Let me spend 5 minutes on explaining this. First question: Bhartruhari virachitasya niti shatakasya adhodatte shloke vidyamananam samesham nishtanta shabdanam siddhim vilikhya shlokasya ashayam swabhashaya spashti kuruta. There is a shloka from Niti Shataka, very beautiful shloka. Some of the shlokas of Niti Shataka that we all must memorize purely for the sake of happiness, or purely for, increasing our vocabulary. This is one of them. Lots of interesting nishtha pratyanta words that we studied today. Look at this. Kshama is there. Krusha is there. Some other apanna is there. So again, nishtha related transformation is there. Jirna, again halicha dirghaha bhavati, and so on. So lots of things that we studied today are, and in few previous classes, are being given in this particular shloka. Let me read it. It's actually very beautiful. Kshukshamopi jara krushopi shithila pranopi kashtam dasham apannopi vipannadi dhitirapi praneshu nashatswapi matte bhendra vibhinna kumbha kavala grasaikabaddha spruhaha kim jirnam trunamattimana mahatam agresara kesari. So kesari, a lion, even if he is extremely hungry, even if he is weak, even if he is not able to capture the prey, he will probably die, but he will not eat the grass. Kim jirnam ke trunam atti kesari. Kesari is lion. This shloka is in a Shardula Vikridata Chanda meter. It also talks about kesari, coincidence, and the lion will die but will not eat grass, so not do bad things. It's essentially sajjana people with good intentions. They'll die but they'll not do bad things. That is the theme of this particular shloka. You need to explain the ashaya, the artha of this shloka in your own language. Please memorize this. Those of you who are interested in, Niti Shatakam or good subhashitas, are very beautiful subhashitam. So the task is identify the nishtha pratyanta words, all of them, not necessarily what we learned today, but all of them. So you have kshama, you have krusha, you have kashta, you have apanna, you have vipanna, you have vibhinna, you have matta, vibhinna, baddha, you have jirna. So some 7-8 words are there. Please list them, derive them, the prakriya, and explain the meaning of this shloka. That's first question. Second question is, now that we have ended the discussion of nishthatakara, this question is very appropriate at this point. Nishtatakarasya pratyekam adeshasya ekam udharanam likhata. Nishtatakarasya nakaradeshaha, nishtatakarasya kakaradeshaha, nishtatakarasya lakaradeshaha. Give one example with prakriya. Everything has been taught, nothing new is over here. So this is the homework for today. Samapayamaha. Reminder that tomorrow we will have the homework discussion session. 4 homeworks, I think 81, 82, 83, 84. These 4 homeworks will be discussed in tomorrow's class. The volunteers have already got their answer sheets and they will be talking in tomorrow's class. So Samapayamaha. Ashtadhe Jaganmata Yasya Chittat Samuttita Vedanam Upakaraaya Tasmai Paninaye Namaha Shabda Brahma Samaradhya Krutavanyo Vilakshanam Sarvashayamidam Shastram Tasmai Paninaye Namaha Yena Dhautagirah Pumsa Vimalai Shabdavaribhi तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। धन्यवादः।